Hey followers, this is your boy, Doug Kenney. Today I have Sarah Montgomery with us, an up and rising race car driver, and she's the driver for the sports car team Round 3 Racing, and she has an incredible story to tell about her career. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me, Doug. I'm excited to be here.
No problem. You don't have to do these anymore. You know that, right?
Oh, I definitely will never turn down a marketing opportunity.
For sure.
Yep.
And that's what I'm currently studying in my college at the moment. I'm studying business, finance, and marketing.
Nice. Never can go wrong with that. You can always find something to do with that.
For sure. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm an internationally known author at the moment. I've written several books, from the screenplay based on Moses, and this
Uh-huh.
is one of my most successful books ever.
Nice.
The amazing comeback of an autistic spokesperson.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Buzz Mccall, one of the team
Yeah.
owners for Round 3, he was interviewed for this one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and Buzz was one of my most successful videos on YouTube because he was very storytelling.
Yeah. How did you meet Buzz?
I got connected with him through a friend of mine named Vic Sifton. Vic
Okay.
Sifton was the owner of Kanaska Racing back in the 1980s. And
Nice.
I actually had known about Buzz before I met Vic, before I
Uh-huh.
spoke to Vic, but
Hmm.
I just didn't know anything about him. I
Nice.
knew him as the owner of the Caterpillar car in the Cup
Yeah.
Series,
Exactly.
but I only knew him at the time for his rough season when in the
Hmm.
Caterpillar car. But
Yeah.
then I didn't. But then I realized from Vic that he was actually a championship team owner, and then I
Nice.
was like, "Oh wow,
Hmm. Yeah. He's a very cool guy. He's got all the stories.
yeah, for sure." Like when I interviewed Buzz a little over a year ago, like I asked him a question about his race team, and he went on a monologue that covered half of my list by the time it was over.
Oh, nice. That's very convenient.
It is, yeah. So, Sarah, I must ask you to start this off. Where are you originally from?
I am from Lafayette, Louisiana. I was born and raised there and lived there for a majority of my life. I love it there. It's such like Cajun culture, like very homey. Everyone there is great. The food is great. That's why people go down there to visit is the food. But I moved here to Atlanta about 2 years ago to kind of pursue my racing career. There's a lot more things to do around here that have racing. So it's definitely way better up here for the racing aspect. I miss the food and all that other good jazz, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I'm here in Atlanta now.
Yeah, I went to Louisiana a couple years ago, and I remember it for the food, like the
Yeah.
oysters and such.
Yep, that you can't not remember it for the food. One of my friends is coming down with me for Thanksgiving this year, and he's like a health nut. And I was like, you have to prepare yourself to gain at least 5 pounds. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to gain 5 pounds. And I'm like, I promise you're going to gain 5 pounds. So,
That's a good way to look at it. I'm
yeah.
originally from Estes Park, Colorado.
Oh, cool.
You ever
Very
been to
cool.
Estes?
Yeah, I actually just went on a trip with my friends this year to uh, oh my goodness, I'll think of the name in a minute. But it's right near Estes Park.
Yeah, and growing up there in the mountains was a lot of fun because you had
Yeah.
the national park to yourself, but it's
Hmm.
currently in trouble at the moment with that fire that's
The fire.
raging.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah. I
I
hope
can't
it
think of where we went.
survives.
It's gonna drive me nuts. I'll think of it randomly during this interview.
Yeah, probably. Just let me
Uh-huh.
know when you remember.
I will. I will. I'll probably be in the middle of a sentence and just instantly blurt out the name, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
Uh,
So what made you get into racing?
Well, kind of a random weird story. My dad was the top salesman at his car dealership. And so he got free tickets to go to an IndyCar race. And so when I was 10 years old, we packed our motorhome up and went to the IndyCar race in Texas. And I had zero interest. of going there. Like I had no interest in cars, nothing. And then when we got to the race, I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with the smell of the car, the fuel, the burning of the rubber, the sound of the engines, all that stuff.
I love it.
I just completely fell in love with the sport at that point. And then we went back to the same race the next year. And during that year, I didn't go to another race. I was watching racing on TV, like learning about the sport, like learning how it works, like passing pit stops, all that stuff. And then the next year we went, I was obsessed, like even more so. I was like, this has to be something that I do. And it was one of the first years that Danica Patrick was in IndyCar. So there's a lot going on with, you know, being a young girl, seeing a female succeeding and doing well in the sport. It was good fun. So when we got back from that race, I brought my parents my piggy bank and said, please help me get involved in racing, you know, like help me, whatever, you know, do something. And sure enough, about 6 months later, they bought me a dirt oval go-kart. And so we started dirt oval racing. And my very first race, first thing I do on the oval is turn right and smash it into the wall. I just didn't know what I was doing back then, but obviously things have changed a little bit. So yeah, it was good fun. So started in dirt oval go-karts and then moved to Spec Miata and now just kind of doing a whole bunch of stuff. So.
Yeah, to tell you a little bit, I really support women being in racing for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm really supportive of that. And I kind of feel that Danica didn't get as good a chance that she probably needed to win races.
Yeah, I think if she would have stayed in IndyCar, she would have done extremely well. I mean, obviously the money and sponsorship in NASCAR is fantastic. And like her promoting her brand, which was, you know, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, success-wise, I think if she would have stayed in IndyCar, she would have done well there too. So
for sure. And
yeah,
I really was disappointed when she lost that Montreal race after being dominant at one point back in the Xfinity series, you know?
Yeah.
Because that was one that she probably should have won.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she was great. I really admired Danica and her commitment to the sport. That was great to see.
Yeah, obviously so did I. She's the one who got me in racing. So
yeah, and Vic Sifton told me a year ago when I was talking with him about racing that in his opinion, you don't nearly win the Indy 500 for Bobby Rahaal's team without a level of talent.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. I 100% agree.
So I'm glad to see that you're getting involved in the sport. What are your hopes for the future? Sports cars, NASCARs, Indy cars?
I'd really like to stay in sports cars. So to kind of make the racing world a little bit smaller, I fell in love with the sport, obviously, and had a cousin in it. So my cousin just so happens to be Bill Riley and with Riley Technologies, who builds all of the prototype cars for IMSA. And right now they're running the AMG Mercedes team in GTD for IMSA. And more than anything, I would just love to be a part of that program or a part of any program that Bill is running, because he's just a fantastic mastermind of building cars and, you know, strategies and things like that. So my career goal is to be in one of his cars one day, in a sports car.
That's good, and I really believe you can achieve that from what I've read about your statistics.
Fingers crossed. Working on it.
There have been some successful drivers in racing, like Amy Ruman. That's another.
Yeah, Amy Ruman's awesome. I've met her a few times. She's a really cool girl.
For sure. I really admire her as well. Like, she's like Danica Patrick for like sports cars, but a little bit more successful, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, after that, I must ask you, when did your career begin to advance? Like, when did it start lifting off the ground?
I guess there would be many parts to that as an answer, because, like, every time I'd jump into something new, I'd have, like, my learning year, and then it'd slowly start to progress from there. So, like, in dirt oval karting, it took me a couple years to get the hang of racing in general and how to do it. And then towards the end, I started winning more races and winning championships. And then when I jumped into Spec Miata, I was right back at the bottom of the totem pole. And I moved to Spec Miata probably in like 2013 to 2014, I would say. And then slowly, you know, at the bottom of the totem pole, figuring out how to drive a race car, because it's way different than oval dirt kart. So like learning that, and then slowly winning races, and then winning a couple championships, and then being thrown into Skip Barber, the MX-5 Skip Barber. That was probably 2015-ish. And just slowly progressing from there. And then, you know, last year I was the first female to ever podium in an MX-5 Cup race 4 times in a row, which was like honestly the highlight of my career so far. That was a goal I've pushed for over 5 years and was able to accomplish that. And that was huge for me and my team and the series itself. So I think, you know, it's just every time I jump into something, you always start back at the bottom and then slowly progress to do better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that with my YouTube channel. When I
Mm-hmm.
started YouTube, you know, at first I didn't get a lot of views, but I built it up and gotten better over time, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
And doing these Zoom conferences with so many great people across the world, that's the highlight of my career so far.
Yeah, and Zoom makes it easy for you too, I'm sure. So
For
that helps a little
sure.
bit. Yeah.
And as far as your podium finishes, I heard a lot of good things about that. Like, that's
Mhm.
amazing that you're able to podium so many times.
Thank you. Yeah. Last year it was so stressful to try and get on the podium. You know, everyone was like, she's going to be the first girl to do it. So it was pressure from everyone on the outside, from Mazda, from my team, and then also the pressure I was putting on myself to do that, be the first female to do that.
It shows that anything is possible,
Yeah.
especially considering that Boris said almost won Daytona in 2006 in the Cup Series.
Hmm.
You know that race?
I don't think so.
Yeah, have you ever heard of Boris said?
Yeah, I know who Boris said is.
Yeah, back in the Cup Series in 2006, he co-owned a race team which was sponsored by No Fear, I believe. And with the team, in only his second race, he almost won the Coke Zero 400
Huh.
in 2006.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so anything is possible in the sport of motor racing.
Yeah, if you just put your mind to it and, you know, just believe in yourself, I think you can get a lot done.
Yeah, for sure. So after that, I must ask, what is working for Buzz and Brad Mccall like?
Oh man, those two guys are quite a hoot. I really enjoy working with those guys. I was introduced to them at the end of 2019, I think, right after the MX5 Cup season had finished, and Shift Up Now had put me in contact with them. So honestly, I had no clue what I was getting myself into, nor did I think that it would turn into what it has. So I just met them at Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, and you know, just they were like, race with these guys for this weekend, and I was like, okay, cool. You know, racing, I'm always up for that. And you know, with a new team and new owners and new co-drivers, it's always somewhat of a nerve-wracking thing because, like I said, you literally never know what you're getting yourself into or who they are, if they're good, anything like that. And especially coming off of a prestigious team that I was with in MX5 Cup with Six Sideways, they really were just a fun group to be with and always kept their professionalism high. And so, you know, I kind of had that same expectation going in with round 3 racing, and they were right there with those guys. So it was just really neat. They are awesome father-son duo. They run their business really professionally, which for me and, you know, Lonnie Unser, who's also up and coming female on the team, it's important for us to have like a professional look, if that makes sense. And I don't want anything to ever jeopardize that just from, you know, not being with a good team or whatever. But these guys, they've got me locked down. So
Yeah. One thing I know about the Unsers is they're literally like the Andrettis for America as far as racing dynasty.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The Unsers are a big family in racing.
And to be honest, I read a funny article about Bobby Unser, and it was written by a fellow IndyCar driver. I think it was either AJ Foyt or it was either Foyt or somebody in that era. But he was like, nobody can convince you that black is white more than Bobby Unser.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I'm hoping to get Lonnie Unser on the channel soon. I've been in contacts with her about it, so hopefully it works out.
Yeah, she's actually been texting me while we've been talking. She's just, she's honestly one of my best girlfriends, and it's cool. Like, her and I are in the same in the boat of, our family doesn't necessarily come from money, so we have to hunt and find all of our partners and things like that. So it's nice to have another female that you can lean on with the same kind of deal, if that makes sense.
It does. Aren't you guys sponsored by Shell Pennzoil?
Correct. So I'm sponsored by Shell, which is like a huge honor because they only sponsor, Joey Logano and I can't think of the guy's name because I'm put on the spot. In IndyCar.
Team?
In IndyCar, yeah.
Oh, is it Simon Pagenaud?
No, it's not Simon. It's the blonde.
Garden?
That guy, yes. Joseph. Oh, gosh. That's probably not going to look good. But Joseph and Joey are the other two drivers that they sponsor. And they sponsor Round 3 Racing, which is like such an honor to be comparable to those guys in their eyes. It's a pretty cool thing that we've got going on there with Round 3.
For a number of years, I was not a Joey Logano fan due to circumstances, but my opinion on him lately has softened. Like, nowadays, I respect anyone that's behind the wheel, no matter who it is.
Yeah.
It's their job to put on a show.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, I was shocked this week to learn that Team Penske is not going to return to V8 supercars next year with Dick Johnson. Did you hear about that?
I did see that. And that he was coming to IndyCar.
Yeah, Scott McLaughlin, I believe, is the name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a force to be reckoned with in Australia, DJR Team Penske. Like, I was surprised that they're not going to continue after so much success. Yeah,
I hear you on that. I agree. But I don't really watch too much of the supercars. I don't honestly watch a ton of racing. But yeah, I didn't watch too much of that, but I did know that they were dropping out of that.
Yeah. Have you ever been to the Daytona 500 at all?
I haven't been to the 500. I've only been to the Daytona 400.
Oh, the Coke Zero 400.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
Oh, boy. That was probably in 2015 or 16, I would say.
So was it Dale Jr. that won?
It might have actually been Tony Stewart.
Then I think it was 2012 then, because that was the last time.
Oh, that would have definitely been, that's right, because I was in high school when I went, and that was definitely 2012, yes.
Yeah.
I have all my years wrong. I was just hoping I was a little younger, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little disappointing that Tony Stewart wasn't the same after his broken leg. But I was glad to see him win Sonoma a few years back in his final year. That was great.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a huge Tony Stewart fan.
Yeah, he's a great ambassador for dirt car racing and cup racing and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's great to see that he's helping drivers that haven't won in a while, like Almirola and Chase Briscoe. That's great what he's doing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that.
Have you ever been to the Indianapolis 500?
I have not. That is one of my bucket list races. When they allow fans back, I definitely want to make that happen.
Yeah. How have you held up in COVID times?
It's been pretty interesting. I luckily live in like a little, like, I don't even want to call it an apartment complex, but there's only 8 of us that live in this little complex, and we've all become really close friends during this time. So it's actually not been terrible.
Yeah, and it hasn't been terrible for me either for the most part. I did get sick last year when I went
Yeah.
to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been an early offset of maybe COVID, but I don't know
Hmm.
for sure because I
Yeah.
recovered rather quickly. But I
Yeah.
haven't gotten sick this year despite the pandemic, and I think
Yeah.
part of it is because of the healthy choices I'm making in bodybuilding.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That eating healthy and, working out is something I live by too. And I definitely think it keeps your body in check and keeps you healthy.
And it helps your immune system
Hmm.
resist like sickness.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
why I'm doing it.
I completely agree.
Have you raced overseas before?
I have not. I've only ever been out of the country twice, and that was both to Most Sport in Canada. So that's the only overseas racing or out of country racing that I've ever done was in Canada at Most Sport.
Yeah, I didn't hear about most, even though it's a very popular track, I
Hmm.
never knew about most sport until the
Yeah.
NASCAR Truck Series went there.
Oh, nice. It's honestly one of my favorite tracks. It's high on the list.
Yeah, and what I remember about most sport is that it sometimes makes you heated and passionate because of how fast and
Yeah, it's
hard
a
it is
scary
to race.
track. It's a very scary track, that's for sure.
Yeah, and what I remember is it was the year that I saw the truck race at Most Sport was 2013, and
Hmm.
that was the year when Pappas got into it with that other sports car driver. And
Oh boy.
when it happened, I was sort of like a little bit mortified because I
Uh-huh.
didn't realize how heated they got.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Oh
as
yeah,
I
that's a
as I
normal
watched
thing.
what happened after the race, I sort of had to look like
Hmm.
that because I was like,
Hmm.
man, you know.
Yeah, that's not gonna be pretty.
No, it isn't.
Uh-huh.
But that's part of the sport, entertainment.
Oh, for sure. For sure. That's what definitely keeps it alive and rolling.
Yeah. Have you ever met Pappas at all? Max Pappas?
Yes, I have met him a couple of times, and it was whenever Pappas MPI started making the steering wheels for the MX-5 Cup cars.
Yeah, I saw that he started that business. That's
Yeah,
really good. Is he
yeah.
retired, I believe?
I don't actually know. I would say yes. I think he's more focused on the steering wheel company now, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I interviewed him last year for my channel, and it was one of my biggest videos that were
Oh, cool.
successful.
That's neat. Very cool.
He was a pleasure to talk to and very talkative, though, like
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Hey, that's never a bad thing, especially if it gives you good ratings and things like that.
For sure, I'm just going to go with it. And I
Uh-huh.
will say that my interviews with Buzz, they generate hundreds of views within minutes, literally, because of
That's
how good
awesome.
a storyteller he is.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's awesome. Yeah, he's always at the track telling stories. I'm this past weekend I was actually getting in the car to race and he's like telling me a story and I'm like, Buzz, I need you to calm down for 2 seconds while I get in the car, put my helmet on, and go race. And he's like, okay, go do your thing. It's awesome. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and I learned from Brad in our interview, as well as something he said on Facebook,
Hmm.
that Buzz's stories are so fun to hear
Oh,
that
they are.
that they do it at the campfire, and they're like, hey, Buzz is going to tell a story, and everybody immediately scatters to listen. you know
That's so funny. They're so elaborate and so in detail, and he's got a ton of them, but they're all so entertaining. You can't not listen.
Yeah, that's
That's
why I
awesome.
like chatting with him, just because he's a
Uh-huh.
good storyteller and he's
Uh-huh.
elaborative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a good one. I do like Buzz.
Yeah. How has the racing business changed since COVID began?
Um, well, when it first started, I didn't have a ride anyway, so it didn't affect me much. But they were, as you probably know, like canceling a lot of races left and right.
Yeah.
Um, and then whenever I finally did get a ride again, it was the I think it was in June, we went to Daytona for WRL with Round 3 racing. And they were super worried about like last minute, everything being canceled, things like that. And they did cancel a few of the races that were in like April or May. So they rescheduled those, or maybe they just canceled them altogether. I don't know. I wasn't a part of the team at that time. So it is weird going to the racetracks because they're not really easy at the front gate. Like this past weekend at Mid-Ohio, the front gate guy was like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "I'm driving this weekend. I'm a driver." He was like, "You're a driver?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." And he was like, "Okay, well, where's your hard card?" And I was like, "Well, they don't make hard cards in AER. Like they just don't do that. It's just, you're on the list. They give you an armband and you go in." And he was like giving me a hard time that I was a driver this weekend. So they're just like more like precautious about letting certain people in, like just, making sure you're actually a necessary body that needs to be here this weekend versus like a fan coming to watch. So I'm sure it's different at like the IndyCar and NASCAR races right now, but somewhat of like the racing that we're doing, like WRL and AER, they're being a little more cautious. You can let a few fans in at certain racetracks. It kind of just depends on the racetrack too, and the state and what the state's requirements are for COVID right now. So it just kind of all depends, but it has definitely changed, but nothing crazy different, just wearing masks, just like in normal daily life. You can still start doing the same things again, but you just have to wear your masks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've noticed that the NASCAR drivers are wearing masks on a regular basis because of it.
Yeah.
Did you see the Indianapolis NASCAR race this year on television?
No, I didn't watch that one.
Almost won the race. Did you hear about that? Or yeah, he was making his return to Cup racing with the Chip Ganassi organization.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
And in an interview, he was wearing a mask afterwards. And the reporter was like, he finished second, which was his best finish so far this year. And a reporter was like, I'm sure under that mask is a smile from Matt Kenseth.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, we don't, they expect us to wear masks when we're not in either the garage or in our trailer.
Got it. Okay.
So when we're at our home base, we can kind of do whatever. And then whenever we're on public property, we have to wear our masks.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So what does round 3 stand for? Exactly.
I don't actually know. Hey, it might be their third time trying to get back at it again. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? That could be part of it.
I know. That's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Who is your biggest racing hero growing up?
So I guess it's always kind of been different. Like I've always admired like Danica, and then as I learned about more women in motorsports, like the Lynn St. James and the Shirley Muldownys, things like that, looking up to them. But I'd say in every like different series I've ever driven in, there's always someone that I looked up to. So like dirt oval karting, there was always someone that I wanted to be just like. And then in Spec Miata, same thing. I always wanted to be just like so-and-so. And then whenever I moved to, MX5 Cup racing, I always wanted to be just like my team owner, John Dean, who is like the mastermind god of this series, who's won just about everything you can win in that series. And I guess as I like every transition of racing, it's always kind of changed. But, I always admire like the females who have done it before me and like how hard it was for them to get started, like Lynn St. James, and even Shirley, if you go back and watch and hear about their stories, like what all they've had to go through, it's pretty cool that they were able to tough it out and prove all those people wrong, quite honestly. So
yeah, they definitely proved a lot of people wrong. Like Janet Guthrie was
cool.
What she did in Indy cars was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I think she was the first IndyCar driver, in the sport at the time. And the fact that she qualified for Indianapolis and Daytona, that's really admirable.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. It's very impressive what she went through, too. I heard an interview from her on a different racing podcast, and she was She is cool.
Yeah, and she resisted all of the people that were against it because
Yeah.
back then, so many people, felt that it wasn't a sport for women. And
Uh-huh.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. I
I think
100%
everybody
agree.
should have an equal chance to prove themselves in the sport, whether you're
Yeah.
male or female.
Yeah, which is good because now it's turning into that. I feel at least a lot more than it was whenever like Janet and Lynn had to go through all of that. Um, I've never been turned down an opportunity in a race car because I was a female. I've had male, not teammates, competitors, like sometimes to say things, but it's something now that I hear, it just goes one ear and out the other. I'm like, obviously, if you can't conform to the new times, then you don't deserve my time anyway, quite honestly.
Yeah, and you're going to have a miserable life.
Yeah,
Can't
exactly.
conform to the new
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
I
exactly.
understand that people like that lived in a different generation, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean it's going to last forever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So and there's not much of that anymore. There was a lot of it when I started dirt karting, but I also think it was because we were all like kind of teenagers at the times and the guys hated that I was racing with them. So that's just how it goes. You just get used to it.
And honestly, people that insult your talent, they're probably jealous because they see something in you that they don't have. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Probably. That
That's
sounds
the
good
way I
anyway.
look at it.
Uh-huh. I like it.
So yeah, after that, I must ask, what's your favorite road course to race on?
My favorite road course to race on would probably be either Mosport, Road Atlanta, or probably like BIR.
That's great. I really am glad that NASCAR's going to Road America next year, and I
Mhm.
hope they go to Road Atlanta soon because they used to do testing there, and
Oh, interesting. I didn't even know that. I
yeah,
told you I don't watch much racing, so
yeah.
that's
Back
funny.
in 2011, race driver Brad Keselowski was practicing his car at Road Atlanta and got into an
Mhm.
accident that
Hmm.
hurt his ankle. And Brad said afterwards that that's when his statistics actually started to go up because he was starting to win frequently after
Huh.
that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I found that story interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
Road Atlanta, I hope NASCAR goes there eventually. That's a good
Hmm.
track from what I've read.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very fun track. I
Yeah.
like tracks that are super fast and take a lot of guts, but they're very technical. Those are the ones I do best at.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve? Have you ever raced there?
Mm-mm. Never even heard of it, I don't think.
It's in Montreal.
Okay, yeah, no. I've only been to Mosport. That's literally the only time I've ever been out of the country was to race at Mosport.
Okay, got it.
Uh-huh.
What I liked about Road America and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is they're unpredictable as far
Yeah.
as who's going to win the race.
Oh, for sure. It can change on the last straight.
Yeah, it could change several times. Like back in 2011 during the Xfinity race in NASCAR,
Uh-huh.
it looked like Michael McDowell was going to win the race, and
Hmm.
he ran out of gas with like 3 laps to go. And
Huh.
the race used up all of their overtimes, meaning they used all their green, white, checkered finish
Yeah.
attempts.
Yeah.
And so Justin Allgaier took the lead and ran out of gas at the white flag. And
Nice.
then Ron Fellows appeared to have won the race, but then
Hmm.
was penalized for passing another car under caution. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's a disaster.
Yeah, a whole
That
bunch of
that the
things going
lead
on.
kept changing.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
how unpredictable Road America is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's crazy. It'll be cool to see him there.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that they have fun there because I'm sure they will.
Kind of hard not to. That's a cool
Yeah.
place.
So, what race do you want to win the most in your career?
I actually like don't have like my biggest goal in racing is to be able to drive one of my cousin's cars. So like, sure, it would be really cool to win like the 24 hours of Daytona, but even for me, I just like to be even more of, if I get the chance to even race in the Daytona 24 hour, that would just be awesome. You know,
Hopefully, round 3 racing will field a Rolex car.
that would be awesome. That would be cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have an answer, because I think just even having the opportunity to drive in any of those like prestigious races would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. And
Yeah.
hopefully you'll make it. I have utter confidence in you that you will.
Fingers crossed. That'd be cool.
Have you ever raced at Sonoma or Watkins Glen?
I've raced, yeah, Watkins Glen is fantastic. That's an awesome track. Definitely one of my higher ups there as well. But I have never driven Sonoma.
Sonoma, I bet, would be more harder because of all the uphills and the turns
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah. Who
But
knows?
Watkins Glen seems to be on par with most sport, it looks like a little bit.
Yeah, I would say they have comparable things, but there is nothing scary like most sport. There is nothing scary like most sport. I just, yeah.
Yeah, from what I've read, part of the reason that Ron Fellows did so good at Watkins Glen was because of certain parts he knew about most sport. That's
Mhm.
what I read.
Yeah, which is definitely fair. You know, if you have confidence to drive at most sport, you can basically drive anywhere else.
Yeah, but most sport is the scary track, you think, then?
Oh, for sure.
I'll
For
have
sure.
to look into that. I've heard that it is hard to race there.
It is. It's also just like scary. It takes a lot of guts. A lot of guts. I got out of the car after the first time ever driving there, and I was literally shaking.
Yeah, that could be partly why it's so popular, maybe
Yeah.
because of how the guts it takes to drive
Yeah.
there.
Well, that's why I love it. Frightened every time I drive there, but I just love it. It is a cool track.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And these
Mhm.
are my final 2 questions on the list, but
Yeah.
who do you think is the greatest driver of all time?
Oh, that could be one that's up for debate. I feel like there are so many great drivers. It depends on kind of what I'd probably say either Ayrton Senna, or I'd even be bold enough to say Lewis Hamilton is one of the greatest drivers who's currently living and fully racing, has 92 wins under his belt in Formula One right now, so, or 94, something like that. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm on par with that. I would say at the moment it's probably Hamilton. The
Yeah.
only reason that I don't watch Formula One is because it's gotten to the point where the only guys that win are whoever qualifies on the podium.
Uh huh.
Like,
Yeah.
unless something happens, which happens every now and then,
Uh
it
huh.
seems like the only guys who win are whoever qualifies 1, 2, or 3, and that's about
Hmm.
it.
I love Hamilton. This is going to just cause a whole bunch of fireworks with all of my friends when they watch this, but I love Hamilton because he's so arrogant and cocky. I just love that. But he has every right to be arrogant and cocky because he's done so many amazing things. You know, people don't like him because he is that way. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm on par with that. I respect whoever gets behind the wheel, no matter what their
Uh-huh.
attitude is.
Uh-huh.
And just because they might be arrogant on the track doesn't mean it's representative of how they are off the
Hmm.
track.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you have to give Joey Logano credit. He
Hmm.
is arrogant on the track. But
Yeah.
when you look at his off track life, he's done so much for charity,
Yeah.
and he's also done so much for Shell Pennzoil and
Hmm.
even Cinema with his role in Logan Lucky.
Yeah.
So who they are on the track may not be representative of who they overall are as a person.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it. And that's partly why I have respect for Joey Logano now. It's just because I've realized that who they are on the track may not represent who they overall are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean?
I completely agree.
So yeah, after that, I must ask, what does your future look like as far as racing? And this is the last question I have for now.
Well, I can't tell you that. It hasn't even been announced yet.
Oh, touche. I guess I should have thought before I do that. I guess I'm so used to other people, giving me answers about it that okay,
I
let me see if
stumped you. I love it.
yeah,
So all I will say is it's very similar to this year, and that I do, as far as we know, have a full season for next year. So you just have to keep up watching and then get back in touch with me and we'll talk about it.
okay, let's just take that because I just remembered now that my longtime mentor, Andy McPhee, he's
Mm-hmm.
told me quite a few times that I need to eliminate that question because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
That's very true too. And who's to say that, sponsors fall through, and because that's also the life of a racer too. So fingers crossed that everything does work out. But yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. And maybe I should do what he says now and take that question off my list.
Or just word it differently. Do you have plans for next year?
Oh, that would be better. That's what I'll say. Let me just write that very quick.
That's awesome.
Do you have any plans for the future in racing?
Or for next year, if you want to be so specific.
Yeah, for next year. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Andy, I'm finally taking your advice if you watch
Yay.
this.
You're welcome.
All righty. I want to thank you for coming on my channel.
Thank you for having me, Doug. I appreciate it. I can't wait to watch it, share it, and tell you about what's happening next year a little bit later.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that. And whenever you have a chance, followers, please check out my work of literature from 2019, The Amazing Comeback of an Autistic Spokesperson.
Yep.
And I want to thank Sarah for coming on board the channel, and we'll see you next time on Challenges and Choices.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug.